Welcome to Issues, and I'm your host, Richard Smith. As you already know, Issues is a program that deals with the community and with people in the community. This evening we have with us the American Consul. I will not try to pronounce his last name, so I will let him tell you his last name. His first name is Adam, which I can easily pronounce. So welcome, Adam, and you can share your last name with the folks.
Thank you, Richard. My last name is Vogelzang.
Vogelzang. Okay, right. Very good. Now, Adam, let's get right to it. Are embassies and consulates, are they the same thing? Because we hear the term consulate and embassies, so are we generally speaking about the same thing?
They are different. Embassies are in capital cities, and consulates are in major or important cities in the same country. There's one embassy, and there can be multiple consulates. So, for instance, the embassy for Bermuda is actually in London. The U.S. Embassy is there because Bermuda is an overseas territory of the United Kingdom. So we are considered a consulate here in Bermuda. In my previous posting in Toronto, I was in a consulate because the embassy is at the capital city, which is Ottawa. Okay,
thank you for explaining that. Now let's get right to what everyone wants to know. The stop list. Now, I don't know how many times probably folks in your position have explained stop list to us as Bermudians, but once again, where is this stop list and what is it all about?
Well, Richard, we actually don't have a stop list, and that's one thing that we're trying to get out to people here in Bermuda, is that there is no stop list. There is a Bermuda stop list, but that's a term that Bermuda Immigration has. They do have a list of people that cannot come to Bermuda, and they call that a stop list. But the American government does not have a stop list. We have people who are unable to travel to the U.S. due to ineligibilities. That is, they've made themselves ineligible for travel to the U.S. due to various immigration or criminal problems that they've had in the past.
Knowing that, then, sometimes when an individual would go to the airport, and I've heard individuals tell me, I didn't even know I was on the ineligible list until I went to the airport. Now, is there a way of individuals knowing whether they're ineligible to enter the United States or not?
Well, there are a number of ways that one could be ineligible for travel to the U.S. The most common way is probably problems with drug possession, problems with stealing and assault, problems with drug trafficking, or immigration problems, overstaying a previous visa or period of stay. And there is no ineligibility list. It's all about the individual. So if you individually have been convicted of a crime, you may very well be ineligible for travel to the U.S. The only way for us to determine whether or not you are eligible for travel would be for you to make an application for a visa. And we welcome all Bermudians who would like to apply for a visa at the consulate on Wednesdays, and we can review your record at that time, your police record, your Bermuda police conviction record, and advise you whether or not you are ineligible. If you are not ineligible, we would issue you a 10-year visa for travel to the U.S., and then you don't have to worry about that question coming up again unless something else happens.
Okay. So if someone has committed a crime and they don't want to be embarrassed by going down to the airport and finding out that they can't enter the United States, the best thing for them to do then is make an appointment at the consulate. You said on Wednesdays?
Yes.
On Wednesdays?
Yep.
And then they would need to bring with them their police record, and then you folks would go through the process and find out if
you do need to make an appointment, fill out the application, and go to the police records office in Prospect, Devonshire, and pay the $100 fee to get your full, complete record. Bring that unsealed to our office at the time of your interview, and pay for the application fee. And then we'll review it and let you know whether or not you're going to need a waiver. Or if you don't need a waiver, we'll just issue the visa right there.
Oh, so that process lets the individual know whether they would need to apply for a waiver. Then there would be another process in terms of actually applying for the waiver.
Right. Well, no, it's actually the same process. It's more something that we do inside the consulate. So if you are ineligible for travel to the U.S., and you've shown that you've been rehabilitated and the criminal conviction is not going to adversely affect the interests of the United States, then we will put forward the waiver to the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security has an office in Washington that reviews all waiver applications. They make the final decision on whether or not the waiver is granted. And once they let us know, we will then let you know whether or not the waiver has been approved. Now, if there is no ineligibility, if you haven't committed a crime that requires waiver, then we can issue the visa right then and there, and you can have it within a couple of days. If it requires the waiver process, it can take around 6 months.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. So the granting of the waiver is not done by the consulate here in Bermuda. It's actually done in the States, in Washington, D.C., you said?
That's true, yes. Okay. There is a Department of Homeland Security office. Now, they make the decision on recommendation from the consulate. So if the applicant does not, not all applicants are recommended for waivers. Some are not recommended due to the recency or seriousness or lack of rehabilitation, of seriousness of the crime. But the vast majority are recommended to the Department of Homeland Security, and the vast majority of those are recommended, are granted.
Let's say someone has a medical emergency. Would that be looked upon favorably by the consulate in terms of getting a waiver to go to the States to get medical treatment?
Getting medical treatment does not exempt someone from the immigration laws of the United States. What that would do is allow us, in many cases, to expedite the waiver process. So right now, the waiver process takes approximately 6 months from the time that you apply with all of your documents in order at the consulate to the time that we get a decision back from the Department of Homeland Security. Now, if there is a medical emergency, we can expedite that process, depending on the circumstances and the nature of the illness or ailment. But it does not exempt someone from the requirements for the waiver, nor does it mean that a waiver is going to be granted.
Wow. So once someone is ineligible, they must apply for a waiver.
Right.
That's the only way they'll be able to get in the United States.
That's exactly right. There is no rehabilitation under U.S. immigration law. There's a term called conditional discharge, and that causes some confusion here amongst Bermudians. I have noticed that Bermudians think if they've been conditionally discharged of something in their past, it's not a problem anymore. U.S. immigration law does not see it that way. U.S. immigration law is such that once you've committed a crime, you have a lifetime ineligibility to travel to the United States, and you will always need a waiver.
Wow. So you mentioned earlier 10 years. So after 10 years, that individual will actually have to apply for another waiver then, am I correct?
I mentioned 10 years when I talked about people who don't need a waiver.
Oh.
If you do need a waiver, most waivers are for 1 year.
Oh.
The longest a waiver could possibly be is 5 years. Okay? So if you do get an approved waiver, which happens in the majority of cases here in Bermuda, you would simply reapply before, preferably 6 months before your waiver expires.
Okay. Another question. The consulate, the information that they have on the person to know that they're ineligible. Sometimes I've heard that people think that you get the information from a newspaper or from the media. Is that how the information is gotten?
Well, when you come into the consulate to apply for your visa and your waiver, you need to bring in your arrest and conviction record from the Bermuda police. That's the ultimate source for waivers and for your criminal record is the Bermuda police, and we recognize that. And you are required to obtain that yourself and bring that into the consulate. So that's how we determine whether or not you are ineligible.
Okay. Well, suppose I don't bring in my police record and I just go down to the airport. Would they have any way of knowing whether I have committed a crime or not if I'm not producing any document showing that I was arrested?
Well, they may or may not. That is a chance you have to take. I will say, though, that there is another ineligibility that I didn't mention before that's called misrepresentation.
Oh.
And if you misrepresent yourself and your past criminal history, which is what you're doing if you're presenting yourself without a visa and a waiver, then that risks another ineligibility and further problems down the road.
Now, let's say under 18, 15, 16, and I commit a crime. I'm involved in gang or drugs, and I go to court. Now, at 18 years old, according to the United States, would my record be wiped clean, or would I still be ineligible to enter the United States if prior to my 18th birthday?
If you're underage at the time of the crime, generally the crime will not count against you as far as U.S. immigration law is concerned. Now, I say generally. There are some crimes that will make you ineligible regardless of your age at the time of commission. However, there are many crimes in which if it's committed before the applicant's 18th birthday, it would not count against you. Again, that is something that we would sort out, though, at the consulate. That would be the best place to do that. I personally have done some waiver cases here where the Bermudian had a conviction prior to their 18th birthday and had some problems or wasn't sure, and they came in and we were able to give them a 10-year visa without a waiver required.
Oh, okay, very good. Now, are there we've mentioned drugs and obviously any capital crime like murder, but are there any other crime? Let me ask it this way. Any crime committed, does that make you ineligible?
Not any crime. Okay. It depends. It varies widely. There are a lot of different crimes, and that's something that we will determine, and that has been interpreted through the regulations and through various attorneys and cases in court in the U.S. over the years. The U.S. immigration law, as far as there's something called crimes involving moral turpitude, which is very broad and has been interpreted by the courts, the U.S. courts over the years. The U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act simply says that anyone who is any alien convicted of or who admits to having committed or who admits committing acts which constitute the essential elements of a crime involving moral turpitude or an attempt or conspiracy to commit such a crime is inadmissible. So that's rather broad and it is a bit vague, and that's something that we would have to determine for you if you have any doubt about that.
Okay. Before we go into our next section, we'll take a break. We're going to focus on some other aspects of your job, but we'll come back after we take a break.
Great.
Welcome back to Issues. This evening we're talking with Adam Vogelzang. He's with the American Consulate. Now, if you would like to write us, and we do welcome information from you, you may write us at issuesbda@yahoo.com. Once again, that's issuesbda@yahoo.com. Adam, thank you again for being with us.
You're welcome.
A question. We know that 9/11 changed a lot of things for people all over the world. How did 9/11 affect embassies and consulate, especially Bermuda?
Well, Richard, I was not in the State Department at the time of the attacks or before, so I can only speak from what I have heard and what I have observed firsthand since I've been in the State Department. I think there's been a lot more focus on security, embassy security, consulate security, and that trend will continue, especially in light of the unfortunate September 11 attacks of last year against the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, in which our ambassador was killed, along with 3 other Americans. So what that has meant is there are more stringent requirements as far as setback from roads, interaction of the public with consulates and U.S. embassies, more security in general, cameras, more thorough screening of visitors to the consulates and embassies. You'll see many measures like this. It's an ongoing balance that the State Department has to measure very carefully between security and openness, between opening our doors, which is what the State Department wants to do to welcome people to the United States, but also securing our facilities and our personnel.
Yeah. I've noticed, I've had opportunities to come to the American Consulate, and going through, first of all, there is a guard, a police right outside by the road, and then when you go in the little booth, you've got to give them everything, you know, so I do notice the tighter security that's right here in Bermuda. Now, you do, in terms of your employees, do you have Bermudians working for you, or is it all Americans?
Yes, we do have Bermudians. It's primarily Bermudians, actually, that work there. At the consulate here, we have 3 American diplomats, or foreign service officers, and the rest, about 21 or 22 more, are a mix of Bermudians and Americans. Some Americans, but primarily Bermudians, who work in a variety of roles throughout the consulate.
Okay. Now, we know there is the Consul General. And then what's the next 2 diplomats below that?
The Consul General, and then myself. I am the Consul and the Deputy Consul General. And then there is a management or administrative officer who handles all the administrative things such as budgeting and purchasing and human resources. And she also does work with reporting, political and economic reporting, and public diplomacy as well.
Is there a certain career path for a Consul General and consul such as yourself, and even the third person? What would that career path be?
We are all Foreign Service officers. We're commissioned by the President of the United States. I have a commission at home that's been signed by the President. In order to do that, you have to be a U.S. citizen, at least 20 years of age, and then pass a series of exams. The first is a written exam. If you pass the written exam, which is in 3 parts, you then progress to an oral exam, which is a day-long interview with the State Department examiners, consisting again of 3 different portions. And if you pass that with a high enough score, then you will get an offer to become a Foreign Service officer and work for the United States of America.
One of your aspirations, then, would it be to be a Consul General?
Yeah, I think I would like to give that a shot at some point in my career. Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. There's Consuls General, there's, of course, ambassadors. There's the number 2 person in an embassy is called a Deputy Chief of Mission. That is something that a lot of Foreign Service officers aspire to. And, yeah, depending on the career track and how things go, I think I would like to do that at some point.
Now, specifically here in Bermuda, what are your job responsibilities?
I am the consular officer here. I'm the sole consular officer, so I'm responsible for all consular activities here. Our primary responsibility is to ensure the welfare of American citizens in Bermuda, whether visiting or residing here. So that includes documenting their children born here as American citizens, issuing passports, notarizing documents for use in the United States. More importantly, though, when an American is killed or dies here, we assist the surviving family with getting the remains back to the U.S. and issuing a report of death. When an American is arrested here, we visit the American in prison, make sure they're being treated fairly and are understanding what's happening to them, and also we communicate with their families. Apart from American citizens, we do visas, as we talked about earlier, for those who want to visit the U.S., whether Bermudians or foreigners who live in Bermuda. And we also do immigrant visas for those who are immigrating to the U.S.
Oh, okay. Now, are you open, or do you have, the tourists have access to you 24/7?
If for American citizens who are experiencing an emergency, such as a death or arrest or a serious injury, yes, we do have a special after-hours duty phone. Actually, I have it right here. Okay. This is the phone that rings when an American in distress calls, and that responsibility is shared amongst personnel at the consulate. So we are on call 24 hours a day. There's not always someone at the consulate working, but that phone is available. They have that phone. Yeah.
Now,
yes.
Back to the Bermudians who work for the council. How do they get that position? Do you advertise in the newspaper?
Yes, yeah, we do. We advertise like any other employer in Bermuda. We post it on our website and generally put it in the newspaper. And the Bermudians are welcome to apply. Depending on the nature of the position, we always list the requirements as far as education, prior work experience, and any other special knowledge that they would need, and Bermudians are welcome to apply.
Oh, very good. Now, there are individuals here in Bermuda that have a UK passport. Are there any different requirements for an individual with a UK passport in terms of entering the United States as compared to someone with a Bermudian passport?
That's a good question, Richard. I'm glad you asked. Okay. This causes confusion sometimes amongst Bermudians. The Bermuda passport, you can go to the airport without getting any pre-authorization and travel to the U.S. But if you have a British passport, you actually cannot do that. You need an ESTA approval. ESTA is a long, it's a term that means Electronic System for Travel Authorization. It's run by the Department of Homeland Security. If you Google ESTA, you'll find it there. If you have a British passport, you need to have that ESTA approval before you travel to the United States. I believe it costs $14 and is good for 2 years. But that has to be approved before you can travel to the U.S. Another point that sometimes is important for Bermudians is that if you go with your ESTA on your British passport, the general time that you're allowed to stay is 90 days. But if you go on a Bermuda passport, it's generally 6 months.
Wow.
Now, there's exceptions to that, and you always want to be clear with the immigration officer at pre-clearance at LF Wade, you know, how long am I allowed to stay? And they will make that very clear to you if you ask. But that sometimes is a difference. People travel on their British passport, think they can stay 6 months, when really they can only stay 3 months because they traveled on their British passport. It's not about your nationality or citizenship, it's about your passport that you entered the United States on.
Oh. Okay, so folks, I hope Adam is clear to you. If you have a Bermuda passport and you travel to the United States, you can stay up to 6 months.
If the immigration officer allows. But that's the standard.
If you have a UK passport and you go through the website, you can stay, if immigration allows, you can stay up to 3 months.
Right.
Okay. Now, what about if I'm going to go to school in the United States? Do I need to come to the embassy to get any type of not the embassy, the consulate, to get any type of documentation?
Well, if you are Bermudian, technically no, you do not need to come to the consulate. You only need an approved I-20 from your university. Once you've been approved, the university will grant you the I-20 and will send you that paperwork. And then you need to pay what's called a SEVIS fee. It varies in price, but it's usually around $200, and then you can proceed to the airport to travel to the U.S. Now, some Bermudians choose to apply for a student visa, and obviously non-Bermudians would need a student visa, and you're welcome to do that as well. We can issue with a student visa. Some universities require a visa, sometimes to apply for a driver's license or to sign a lease while living in the United States. Someone in the U.S. may want to see your visa as a foreign national, and we're happy to do that. But Bermudians aren't required to have a student visa by the U.S. government.
Very good. Let me just go back to the topic in our first section, just one question. If someone who is ineligible applies and is denied, can they apply again, or is there a length of time they would need to wait before they apply again?
There is no length of time they have to wait. Anyone who is denied a visa or a waiver may reapply at any time. However, we generally encourage applicants to wait a year or 2 years to show that they have changed or that there's been more time since the crime was committed in the case of a waiver, let's say. A lot of times waivers are denied because the crime was committed very recently, or it's only been a few years, and the more time that you can show that you've been rehabilitated into society, the better your chances of getting approved for that waiver.
Oh, okay. So if someone has committed a crime, would you suggest then that in terms of rehabilitating themselves, they may get involved in community service or their local church work, something where the United States government can see that they're truly rehabilitated?
Yeah, sure. We definitely welcome that, and we often see letters of support from waiver applicants to show that they have been working to integrate themselves into society and supporting their local religious and charitable organizations. And also, do they have a job? Do they own a house? Do they have a family now? Those are all things that we do look at.
Okay. Shifting our focus a little bit, since you have been in Bermuda and you mentioned Canada too, where are some other foreign countries that you and your family have served in?
Well, prior to Bermuda, we were in Canada. Before that, we were in the country of Armenia, which is a former Soviet republic located between Turkey, Russia, and Iran. And before that, we were in Mexico.
Wow, wow. How has your family adjusted to traveling all around the world? It maybe like you're nomads.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like that sometimes. Well, we've been really fortunate to live in such wonderful countries, including Bermuda. We've always enjoyed the countries where we've lived and the people and the places, and really created some wonderful memories for our family, for our children, and we're just happy to have these opportunities. But the United States is always home for us. We always look forward to going back there. That's where our family is, and that's always going to be our home.
Where is home in the United States?
For us, it's in Michigan. We keep a home there and go back there as often as we can. It's beautiful in the summertime if you're looking for a vacation destination this summer.
And also cold.
It's cold. It is cold. If you like the snow, the winter's a great time to go.
We have about 30 seconds left. My last question. Is the American Consulate, is it involved in the community of Bermuda?
Yes, it is. We are involved with helping out with local organizations from time to time. In Keeping Bermuda Beautiful was one thing that we did. I believe there was an activity at Blue Hole Park, or Blue Hill, over by the airport, and also Meals on Wheels was something that we helped out with in the past. And there's various initiatives from time to time. Toys for Tots, I believe, was another initiative that the consulate has taken. So yes.
Very good. Adam, we have 10 seconds left, and someone asked me to ask this question. Let's say a couple lived in the United States. The wife is an American citizen, and the husband had a green card, but they left, and the husband or one of the spouses had to give up the green card, but wished to return to the United States. How long would that process take to get a green card?
Well, it varies a lot depending on the case and how, if you have all your documents in order. It will take less than a year, but it does take a number of months because there's now a drop box in Chicago where you'll have to send all the documents into.
Thank you so much. We've had Adam Vogelzang with us, the American Consul, and it's been interesting talking with him. We might have gone a few seconds over time. We'll see you in Issues next week. Thank you. Thank you.